United States Army General William Palmer first saw Colorado before the Civil War as he was traveling the Rocky Mountains surveying for a transcontinental railroad. In 1870, Palmer founded the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad. Pueblo, Colorado was chosen as the site for a future steel plant as a result of water availability, and because Pueblo was a major transportation hub. On April 12th of 1892, the first steel rail rolled out of the Colorado Coal and Iron Company in Pueblo. But it wasn't until October of 1892 that the company changed its name to CF&I, the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company.
My folks never did want me to go to work out there. We had a family friend that got killed out there, and Mom and Dad said no, because I applied out here in '69 right out of high school. And when folks found out I had applied, they said, no, we don't want you. We want you working there. So they sent me to Denver. I went to work for Gates Rubber Company. But then I came back in '72 is when I went back out to work. Tough work out there, And we're getting old now, and our bodies aren't accustomed to doing a lot of the stuff that they had us doing when we were younger, but it's not bad. The group of guys that we work with, we were just kind of a tight group of guys. We just have a good time, go bowling together, and go have a few,
I started in the mill in 1976. Started in the blast furnace. I worked my way from the bottom to the top. Finally got to the top where I was a furnace operator. And I worked in a degasser. They built a $20 million machine, and I got to operate that machine, and I was good at it. When I first started there was 6,000 people. And then, technology takes over, and they start tapering off. The best part of the job was working as a team, working with my coworkers. That was for the old CF&I Steel. They were a good company. We tapped steel, and we tapped iron for the BOF, basic oxygen furnace, to run their furnaces. We tap a heat about every 6-7 hours. Then they got this new material in, and they started going a little faster and start tapping heats 3 or 4 a day. We had 4 furnaces. So you're looking at 12 heats a day. They came out in them football ladles, what they would call a football ladle. They just tapped nothing but carbon iron that goes to the oxygen furnace, and that starts the oxygen furnace over there. When I went to the electric furnaces, we used to tap them heats out, and that was really impressive. Watching that heel steel come out of that furnace, because I was an operator there, and you tap that steel and hit the ladle. There's a giant explosion, and you're right in the middle of it. You can feel the heat, and the glass would crack, and the smoke, and the dust. And you made good money. Sometimes you never had no days off, but you made the money. If you want to make money, you'll make money.
The CF&I Steel Corporation's early labor force was recruited locally and from steel mills throughout the eastern United States. But soon, European immigrants were the majority of the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company's staff and workforce. By 1910, over 15,000 men and women, 10% of the entire labor force of Colorado, were working for the company. Although the census of foreign-born CF&I steel workers would change over the years, most of these immigrants remained in southern Colorado, as did future generations.
The CF&I was the job, the company in Pueblo, Colorado. And at CF&I there was job security. You know that at that particular time you started for a company, and when you had started it, you know that you was going to retire from it. I'm from the Netherlands, yes, the state of Limburg. My grandfather died in the mine. It was so polluted that he missed the stab and fell 1,500 feet to his death in the shaft. My dad died from silicose and black lung. My brother at this moment also got black lung and silicose because he worked in the mines in Belgium, which are very more dangerous too. I worked at the CF&I for 32 years. I was well acquainted with an interracial workforce, and I could fit in very well. I certainly know that I never, actually when you live in Pueblo, people said, well, a discrimination you can get along with. I think you only find that out when you leave Pueblo. As long as you live over here, I don't think you know it exists. For me, it didn't as a newcomer.
The Colorado Fuel and Iron Company had a 24-hour-a-day medical building to dispense immediate care for on-the-job injuries. CF&I kept comprehensive medical records on all of their employees that may have been injured on the job.
Throughout the years, 34 years that I put in, I was always laid off. I worked in 25 different departments there in that mill. I almost had my fingers cut off at the rail mill. I was lifting a cobble, we call cobbles, and the crane took it up too soon, and I almost cut my finger off. I said, well, I hate to take off my glove because I know I lost a finger, but it was just hanging there.
We had some very good bosses. Everybody knew what it was supposed to do, and they didn't hardly have to tell you to do anything because you knew your job. As long as you were on the job, nobody told you nothing. That's the way it went all the way around. And when you work graveyard, sometimes you don't feel very good. It's the way you go to work and you come back, and sometimes you have things to do at home. You only sleep about 3 or 4 hours, and then from then on you have to go to work again. And sometimes it's like a walking zombie.
By 1900, Pueblo was home to over 34,000 men and women, and by this time, a woman's role in the workforce had become more diversified. Most of southern Colorado's women were either employees of the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company or a related industry. But even the clerical positions at CF&I were labor-intensive, and many of these women had to pull double duty, juggling their home life with their professional life.
You know, we all went to the company store. They had the car supply, and we'd all get our clothes there, and our food and everything came out of there. And then if we didn't have enough money, well, we put it on our credit card. You know, wages were terrible during that time. We got paid $6.04 a day. And when I finished, it wasn't much more than that. We got some women from Oklahoma and Texas, and you know, husky women. I used to pull doors, and then we used to help the crane people a lot. They used to put us in different places, but I got to work in little different places. After the war, I would say about 20 of us stayed. Well, the cousins and all start coming back from the service, and they start going back into the mill, and they start working there. I don't think I could continue there. It was a very good experience. I got to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Right now I'm stationed up on the furnaces, second helper. I started working in 1978 in the coke plant. Common sense will get you because you go through all these safety classes, and they were pretty good with safety classes. But after a while, it's the common sense because you got all these gas lines and all this and that. It's just common sense to get you through the day. And of course, my day didn't end there because I went home and I had kids and a family. So I was working in the plant when my kids came along. So cute and loving, and like my daughter was in grade school, and she would come home like, "Mom, all the other mothers are home." She used to knew I wasn't there, but would be happy getting off the bus knowing that I would leave her a little gift. And no matter what it was, I used to make sure. My kids really grew up independent because now my boys, you know, back then they had to do their own washing because their father also was working. So they knew they had to make their own lunches and their own, wash their own clothes. They were 12 years old and making dinner and stuff because this is how the life was. Another thing, they used to have the take your child to work with you. And they used to push that a lot at school. And I'm like, but honey, you can't go with me. There's no way you can even. I snuck her into the plant a couple of years ago to let her see, and she was amazed at the furnaces. I said, well, this is nothing compared to back the old days and when I first come in, but I just kind of want you to see what I do.
Throughout its history, the foundations of the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company has been its labor force. These brave men and women devoted more than just their time to their co-workers, growing into something of a family. Working at the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company was more than just a job. It was a way of life. Bonds were forged between many of these workers that would last a lifetime.
My father grew up hearing all about the mill because his dad worked there. I grew up hearing all about the mill every day. Every family occasion to this day, anytime we get together for the kids' birthdays or anything, that's all we talk about. It's hard to even imagine the size and the scope of some of this stuff when you're dropping 75 tons of cold metal into 75 tons of boiling metal, and the explosion rips loose and the smoke and everything comes up and rolls across the ceiling overhead, 40 foot over your head. It's incredible. Pieces of tin are flying by. This was my first day and I hadn't seen that yet. And, my uncle was giving me a kind of a tour of where I'd be working with him. And we were standing there when that happened, when they second charge, they call it second charge. Anyway, he happened to be showing me that. We were looking down into this pit, and it was like looking into hell, fire and brimstone. And I was just looking at that and thinking, God, it looks like hell. And then they lit off that second explosion, and the smoke came rolling across the floor and the ceiling, and I took off running. And my uncle grabbed me by the collar, and he was, trying to pull me back in. And I was like, God, get me out of here. I'm a songwriter too, and I'll quote you some lyrics that I think apply. I wrote these with my grandfather in mind, and all the steel workers, and particularly the union. Hard work makes hard people, and iron can be forged into muscle and blood. In the heart of a steel worker, with a soul from God and a body from mud. And if we honor seniority, then we honor ourselves. And if we love our brothers and sisters, then we love ourselves. And if we fight for democracy, then at least we fight for ourselves. And when we've won victory for ourselves, the victory will be for everybody. You work in a place 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and in circumstances that are beyond what most people can imagine. You actually spend more time with those guys than you do with your own families, and you see each other in circumstances that no other person sees them. I think that anybody who spent any amount of time in that environment would be qualified as some kind of a psychologist. I don't know what history's going to say about us. I think our time is passing, or it looks like it is. I can tell you this, I'm not too worried about the guys. These are, like I said, these guys are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. And they're survivors. And they've been through more than what a lot of people go through their whole lives.
Like I say, I've lived here all my life, and I didn't even want to leave when I graduated from high school, and I came back. This is the town I want to live in, and that's why I came back.
I feel real proud to be a retired steelworker. I really do. It's got a lot of memories. A lot of people that lived here in Pueblo, they retired there, raised their kids, and most of the people that work there, they retire with 34, some of them with 45 years, 50 years. So that's got to be something.
Once you work in a coal mine, there is no other job because you create your own environment downstairs, your own camaraderie. And I think that CF&I actually is Pueblo when you look at it. That's one of the things I always remember, that the whole community was not just, CF&I wasn't just to give you a brass check and walk underneath the highway and in over there. It seemed like CF&I was with you as soon as you left the house. Everybody worked in the mill, everybody you knew. Sooner or later it never could keep going, but it still remembers very well in my deal and in my memories. I will never forget it, what CF&I and what the community did for me, and the friends that I worked with over there that accepted me for what I was, and that's what I am today.
I feel great. Being part of a steelworker from this city, it was the backbone of the city. I mean, what are you going to do if... Years ago, you'd say, if the mill shut down, what am I going to do? I can't do anything else. But nowadays, if you look now, where one door closes, another one opens. I mean, there's life after that place. There is. Don't get me wrong. I love the steel mill and I love the people in there, but life's got to go on. If I can go back and do it all over again, I would, because it was so wonderful. It's working with all those men. I don't want to say old. I want to say working with all them seniors. They were awesome to work with, because there's a lot of them that are gone. I miss them because they taught me a lot.
I don't know what we would have been without the mill, because it's part of us.